take a long road trip or perhaps a long flight, it can get very tedious very fast. There's a lot of just sitting, looking at the same scenery. Usually that's not very interesting. It's easy for boredom to set in. But it's not the biggest concern. Before you begin the journey, you need to prepare. It's important to know how you're going to get to your destination. Are you going to drive? Are you going to fly? Can you get the tickets? However, it won't matter where you're going if you can't survive the trip. The Israelites didn't have cars. They didn't have planes. All they had were maybe some wagons and their own feet. God was leading them with the pillar of cloud and pillar of fire, but they still needed to survive the trip, which was going to be long and slow. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah. So 3 days into their journey, and already they're running out of water. They came to a place where there was water, but it was not drinkable. It was bitter. It would make them sick. They named it Marah, which means bitter. And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, which when he had cast into the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them. God brought them all the way out of Egypt. He was fighting for them. So of course he would provide for them so they could make this journey. God won't tell us to do something and then not give us the means to follow it, to do it. Where the water was undrinkable and would make them sick, God made it sweet. He had Moses take a branch from a tree and throw it in the water, and it was good. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness, to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no. After some time traveling, the people of Israel soon were running out of food, and they started to complain to Moses. They brought up the idea, maybe it was better in Egypt after all. Maybe all the pain and suffering was really worth it for some bread. Well, despite their complaining and lack of gratefulness or faith, God gave them bread. He gave them a special food they called manna that rained down from heaven every morning, and they could collect a certain amount, as much as they needed for that day, and they would have food every day. Now, there were some rules to this food. They could only collect enough for that day. The only exception was on the 6th day of the week before the Sabbath, they would collect enough for both days, because on the Sabbath they were not supposed to go out and work. Even collecting manna was against the Sabbath law. However, if they collected any more than they needed for that day on any other day, it would go bad and worms would grow out of it and it would stink. Moses caught some people doing that, and he scolded them for it. And the people thirsted there for water, and the people murmured against Moses, and said, Wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt, to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? And the Lord said unto Moses, Go on before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel and thy rod, wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand, and go. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. After some more traveling, they ran out of water again. This time there was no water in sight, not even bitter water. So when the people complained to Moses that they were thirsty, God told him to go to a rock, and strike it with his staff, and out of it would come water. Moses wasn't doing anything special. He was simply following God's direction, and God was providing for them. Then came Amalek, and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said unto Joshua, Choose us out men, and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill, with the rod of God in mine hand. God was providing the food and water, daily needs of the people. They couldn't have assurance for the next day except on the Sabbath. They had to trust that God would continue to provide their needs day after day. But now came another issue. There was an enemy who wanted to fight the Israelites. They probably saw them as an easy target, and so they sent some armed men to go take them out and rob them. Moses sent Joshua to grab some men and go face them. Whatever tools or weapons they had to fight with probably came from Egypt when the Egyptians were glad to give them anything they needed for their journey. However, these were still untrained men. They didn't train in Egypt. The Egyptians didn't teach them. And it came to pass, when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed, and when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat thereon, and Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side and the other on the other side, and his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. God had Moses stand on a hill, overwatching the battle, and when he raised his hands in the air, the battle for Israel was victorious. But when his arms got tired and started to drop, the Amalekites had the upper hand. So Aaron, Moses' brother, and another man, Hur, helped hold Moses' hands up in the air so that God would provide the victory. Even though the Israelites sometimes failed to trust God, he still provided for them. God faithfully provides for our needs as well. When we trust him and follow him and put him first, he helps to take care of us. We can come to him any time with our concerns, and he never grows tired. He loves us and wants to care for us. Let's not be like the Israelites. Let's be grateful for what God is doing for us and what he has done for us.